Welcome to another episode of Solo Scaled. I am your host, Ken Freire, and today I am with Rob Clark, with the founder of That Tall Family. He has had 8 billion, that's with a B, views on social media and over 4 million followers. If you guys have been on any form of short reels, TikToks, anything like that, you have probably seen one of his videos. Rob, thank you for being on the show, man.
Thanks, Ken. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I'm excited because you and I have been hitting it off on LinkedIn, and we're actually neighbors now. We're pretty close to each other, so we're going to be hanging out here soon. But I'm excited because you kind of just started this thing way back when, and it just blew up. So before we go into your story and how it started, just tell everybody what you do right now.
Yeah, so right now we're kind of in a transition period where most people right now would see us as influencers, meaning that we make videos, they get lots of views, and companies will reach out to us to do videos. And so it could be anything from Capital One to Nickelodeon to General Mills, or even the Abraham Lincoln Museum, which was one of our favorites.
That's
And we'll
awesome.
do a video for them, and they pay us for those videos. And so, but now we're kind of in a transition, which I'm sure we'll get into in the story. Like the goal all along was to work with companies and individual brands to build their own social media. That was the goal all along. That tall family was simply a little bit of, hey, I needed a proof of concept. And so there's this knowledge that I had. And then, yeah, and I fully understand why people would want to see it. And I would also push people anytime you're going to hire someone to do something, make sure they could do the thing. And so that tall family was simply, okay, listen, we're going to do the thing and we're going to show people we know what we're talking about. And it actually took off a little bit faster and bigger than what we even planned. And so it kind of derailed our plans for a little bit because we were on that influencer grind, but it was good. And so now it's led us to the point now where I would say if a company or a personal brand, anybody trying to get attention in the world, they need to use social media. And I guess when I say they need to, that may be a little strong. I would say it'd be silly not to use social media.
Yeah, and social media, and we'll definitely get into this, is one of those things that people know they should do to grow their business, but it feels like it's so hard to crack the algorithm. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's start with your story a little bit more. I wanna do a deep dive. You had this idea of proof of concept. You're like, hey, I
Yes.
want to do this proof of concept. I'm gonna start. Out of all things you could have, you were like, let's start with That Tall Family, and you kind of brought your whole family into the mix. How did it all transpire?
Yeah. So to really understand the story, we have to go back 20 years. So YouTube first comes out. At the time, I'm an insurance broker in Canada. And so I grew up in Illinois, met a girl at college who happened to be from Canada. I got married to that girl, and then she drugged me back to Canada for about 20 years. And so now we're back here in the States, and we love it here. But at the time, I'm an insurance broker and learning business and loving it, learning marketing, learning everything about how to get more clients. But part of the problem was is that if we wanted to go on billboards, it cost at the place that we're at, it'd be $3,000 a month. And it took about 8 weeks to go from start to finish. If we wanted to be on the radio, to really get any sort of traction, we're looking at a $10,000 package. And again, it's a time frame issue where it would probably take us a month before we can be on the radio. And so even if we wanted to do something as small as newspapers, still it was too expensive for the amount of exposure we get. So as I'm working this job, YouTube comes out and I'm interested in it for whatever reason, probably like most of us were, it's like, this is, why would people want to watch videos of people? Like at the time, it just seemed weird. And then I decided to make a video about the insurance broker, about the brokerage. And so I made a funny 15-second video, which, it's funny that we broke out on TikTok because that video was very much like a TikTok. And I posted a video, and the next day it had 2,000 views. And so 20 years ago, on that very first video, I was hooked because now all of a sudden, here's a platform where I can put out content immediately, as quick as I want. It's free, and I could reach unlimited amount of people. And so it all really started there. And then from there, no matter what I did, whatever social media platform was kind of the new thing, we dug into. So a few years after that, well, a few years is like 10 years later, I quit that job, and I actually took a job as a pastor in a church outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. And we used Instagram, which was a relatively new platform at the time, to reach people. And a lot of people came to our church because they first heard about us on Instagram. And so now, all these years later, the cat's out of the bag. We all know that social media can reach the world. So almost 5 years ago, when we decided to move from Michigan down to Atlanta, and I didn't have a job lined up, I knew without a doubt that the way I was going to get recognized and get noticed and eventually get offered a job was going to be through social media. So the goal is I said, hey, Rochelle, who's my wife, let's sell our house. We're going to move to Atlanta and let's start a brand around our family. We'll get some views, we'll get some attention. And from that, it'll make some connections. I'll eventually get a job, whether it's marketing, sales, whatever it may be. And I knew that it would work. I just didn't think it would work as fast and grow as big as it did.
Yeah. What do you think caused the speed of it to grow so fast?
Well, without a doubt, part of its timing, one of its timing. And at the time, TikTok was fairly new. And so, of course, at that point, it was huge, meaning that everybody was on it. But what happens when a platform first comes out, everyone consumes, not a lot of people are creating. So we were early in the creation process. That was one. And secondly, remember, I made a video, and I should share that video to the world again, because if you watch the video, it's very much a TikTok. It's short and it's telling a story within 15 seconds. It had music over the back. And so it very much felt like a TikTok before that was really even a thing. And so part of it is the style that I like to create. And so I knew, and I tried actually long form. Everyone that has done videos, they've always tried long form, because if you can break through on YouTube as long form creators, at one point there was a lot of money in
Yeah.
that. And it took a lot of time for us. I would film a video and I would edit for an hour, sometimes 2 hours a night, and we get 1,000 or 2,000 views. But my style that I just happen to be good at is more of that short form. And so when that became kind of the flavor of the day, there's a bit of it as like that was what I was good at. I was able to tell a short story in 15 seconds. So I think those two things, the timing and the skill set of knowing what people want to watch in 15-second increments.
So walk us through, for those who are listening, there are people who are coaches, consultants, expert-led business owners who are like, I know I should get into this. I want to grow. They're stuck. They don't want to necessarily do ads. They don't want to necessarily do a lot of things. They know short form is a great option. And you mentioned you have the skill set for it. What is that skill set? If you were to break it down and teach someone how to do it, what would they need to do?
Yeah, so a shameless plug. If you want to get the playbook, it's only $5 on Amazon. I call it 4 billion views. Rob Clark, you can go, and it literally is step by step what we did from scratch and how we got those 4 billion views on social media. And so you could definitely do that, but I'll give it to you right now as well.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that you got to understand is just the speed at what things happen. And so a lot of people, when they do a video, they start thinking about what is it like in real life? It's like, hey, I'm Rob Clark and I'm a part of that tall family. Well, if you do that on video, people scroll right by it. And so a lot of times we see in companies, the first 3 seconds is either their logo flashing up, who they are, or they're telling us what's going to happen in the video. Now, in the world of communication, if you're giving a speech, like, yeah, there's certain things. It's like you got to tell people what you're going to talk about, and then you got to introduce you, and so all those things. But in short form media, you realize, like, they say 3 seconds, but we all know it's 1 second. You got 1 second to grab somebody's attention, and so that's called the hook. And so you got to hook people right away. So people don't care about you because they don't know you. So you got to instantly, like within 1 second, figure out a way to say, okay, this video is worth your time. And that's the first thing with short form video is like, you just got to speed everything up. So that first image, the first text on the screen, the caption, the music, all of it really matters more than what people would imagine, because you only got a second.
Yeah. So for those who, again, I love that you brought up the book. I was like, oh man, I need to go get the book. I'm gonna buy it as soon as we get off the call. You, for them, you're gonna give us like a high overview of stuff, but this is where going into the book, you're giving the play by plays. I'm assuming examples of what works, what doesn't work.
Yes.
Have you found anything that people assume is a good hook, but actually isn't? Like, are there trends for that?
So yeah, this is something I talk about all the time, and I say quantity over quality.
Yeah.
And so we hear all the time that quality matters more than quantity. And so, but here's what I say with social media is like, I think both are right, but this is what I mean by it. Quantity leads to quality. So quantity has to come first because on social media, there is no tricking the algorithm. There's no cracking the algorithm because it's always changing. And so what I tell people is like, don't actually think about the algorithm. It really doesn't matter. Think about content that people want to watch. And then the immediate thing that I follow up with that is you don't know what people want to watch. And therefore, you have to put out a lot of content. And by doing that, you're going to figure out what people want to watch. So, for example, early on when we started that tall family, another reason why I think we are so successful is that when we decided to create content, we said 3 videos every single day. It doesn't matter if they're good, they're bad, it doesn't matter. We're putting out 3 videos every single day because I knew what was going to happen is when we started doing that, eventually we're going to figure out what people want to watch. And so as we're doing that time after time after time after time, there's one time there's a video that we did, and it was just because we had to put out a video because we made that commitment to ourselves. So we're leaving for lunch. We haven't done a video yet that day, so we have 3 more to do. So I said, before we get in the car, tell you what, let's get in the front yard. And I set up the iPhone on a Costco folding table. So not fancy equipment. We're standing outside. The house we were living in Atlanta was not nice. Like our neighbor got stabbed. It was not a nice area. That's another story. But so there's like weeds in the yard. And so we simply just try to give my oldest son, who's 7'1", a high five. And so, and then we do that. That takes like 15 seconds. We're driving in the car. I'm editing as we're driving, put some music on it, put some captions on it, and speed some parts up. And I watched it. I was like, this isn't that great. I was like, but it doesn't matter. We got to post it. We got to put 3 videos out today. So I posted it. Long story short, right now, on YouTube. It's our most, actually, another video just passed it, but it's our second most popular video at 225 million views. And so
That's awesome.
I tell that story because I didn't think it was that great, but I don't get to decide, right? And that's the beauty of social media. And when I talk to companies, here's what companies often do that is just throwing money down the drain is that they'll hire a company and they say, we need to get 1 million impressions, 5 million impressions. That company creates an ad. They don't care what it looks like. It probably looks like every other ad they created.
Yeah.
And then they put money behind it. And then that company says, look, we got you in front of 1 million people. We got you in front of 5 million people. No, they got that the video in front, but no one watched it. If you actually look at the analytics, nobody watched it, nobody cared. So what I'm telling people to do is do quantity. You got to put out a lot of content, and then you could find out what people want to engage with. So that video at 225 million views, I know that I could take that and turn it into an ad, and I could put money behind it, and that video is going to reach a lot of people because I already know people want to watch that kind of content. And so you don't learn that though unless you constantly put out content. So early on, put out a lot of content. You're going to find something that people love that you didn't expect. And then if you want, you can continue to do that type of content, or you could put money behind that content and turn it into an ad. So it's just a way to use the content that you make to get your brand out there in a very smart way. Now, we have never put money behind our content at 4 billion views, actually 5 billion views now. We don't put money behind our content because I want to know how can organic content reach people.
Yeah.
And then if you do want to put money behind it, then it's smart money because you know what people are going to watch.
Yeah. How do you find the balance between creating all that content and also like having your niche or like your values of like, hey, this is what I'm about, and I'm trying to get more people to consume my stuff, whether you might have a long form piece of content, and maybe to be more specific, like there's some people who will say create all the content for entertainment's sake, But when you're talking for a business, you're also like, you're trying to drive sales at some point. So where's that balance there?
So I would say the people that are best at it can do both, meaning you can go deep on education and you're going to get some people for sure. You could go deep into entertainment, you'll get a lot more people. The people that win on the internet are the people that do both. And so there is a skill to that, of course, there is an art to that. And so that's the goal. But I would tell people if you're simply going for educational, but there's not a level of entertainment, you're not going to win. It's just the truth. And so if your video's boring, chances are nobody's going to watch it, no matter if it's the greatest content in the world. And so we could say, well, we don't like that, but it's the reality. At the end of the day, if someone is a best-selling author, it doesn't mean that it's the best book. It means
Yeah.
that they're the best at selling that book. That's the reality. And so we could say we like it or not. There's some book out there right now that's the best book that's ever been written outside of the Bible. And yet nobody knows about it because they didn't know how to sell it. They didn't know how to market it. And so that's just the world that we live in. So I would say you got to figure out some way that and I do talk about this in the book. You got to pick some categories. It's like, are you going to entertain? Some people choose the shock value. There's a little bit. It's like always be angry. There's a reason why news is always trying to get people angry
Yeah.
and get people riled up because there is an emotion where when we're fearful, we'll consume more of that content as well. So there are different ways that you can do it. But I would say whatever you do in your business, you have to find a way that you make it enjoyable. Now, for example, I worked with a constitutional judge. And so as you can imagine, not that exciting.
Yeah.
And I think he's 70, a great man, but he wanted to get his content out there. And we had some of his videos go for hundreds of thousands of views because there are certain things that you can do. It's like right away, how do you talk about something that's trending, that is popular in culture right now? Okay, let's grab that. Let's add the subtitles. Let's do quick jump cuts. Let's do some background music that builds the suspense a little bit. So even if it's something as boring as constitutional law, there are things that you can do to spice it up a little bit to make it easier to consume.
Yeah. So for those who are thinking, man, I want to get into this. I want to get into maybe the edutainment, right? I think that's the category that people call it. Does your book have that playbook on how to find that skill set? Because you talked about it earlier. You were like, it's a skill set to learn how to do it. You could do another shameless plug. It might be a different book, or you might need to write
Yeah.
a new book.
Yeah, well, there is a new book coming out, and so maybe next month, maybe 2 months from now, I don't know when it is, but that will have all the playbooks of how to do that. But at the end of the day, the thing that most people don't want to hear is that it's going to take time. It gets back to that idea of quantity over quality. Now, there is a way. So, one, if you don't want to invest that time, then you need to hire somebody that has already done that, and that's true of anything, right? We could as human beings, we're capable of learning a lot of things. And so, but if you don't want to spend the time learning that, then you got to invest in somebody. And so obviously that's something that I do, but there's lots of people out there that do that as well. But now that you kind of brought it up, there is one kind of thing that one of the things that I don't understand, but I do as human beings, that we understand how powerful social media is. We know that the next president of the United States will not win if they're not effective on social media.
Yeah.
We know the biggest Fortune 500 brands in the world will not do well if they're not successful on social media. And yet, many of us in our own businesses will simply throw social media to the youngest person in the company. It's like, you have TikTok. Why don't you run our social media? I work with universities, and you see this all the time. Let's have students run the social media. Just because they're young, they must know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so all that to say is like this, we got to treat it like another skill set. And there are people out there, myself, but there's lots of people that are very good at helping you figure out how to break through on social media for your category.
Yeah. And it's so imperative, I think, in this age of AI, especially for CEOs, entrepreneurs to start growing their personal brand. Right. And like having someone like you, Rob, on their side, like, hey, actually do this, tweak this. You're not talking about it correctly here. How are you using AI in your business or in your edits? Like, for example, are you still doing a lot of the manual edits when you create videos, or are you using AI? Curious, how's
Yeah.
that working
So
out?
so so right now in the world of social media, there are some AI tools, but they're just not there yet. Now
Yeah,
they're going to get there at some point. But the beauty of social media is that it's always changing, and that's also the curse
yeah,
is always changing. Meaning that once you figure it out, it could change tomorrow, and we see that all the time. If we look at our numbers, things go up and down, and there's times where we're through the roof, and there's other times where we're flat, and it's just because the algorithm is always changing and people's expectations change as well. So for AI right now, I think you'll get to a place where we already see some videos that are not real people. And especially in the kind of the education component of it is like, I think we're going to see more and more of that. I don't think the AI is great as entertaining yet, but it's going to get there for sure. And so I would say for any creator is how are you using AI? And I think as maybe Gary Vaynerchuk, doesn't matter, I'm going to steal this quote, this idea that AI is not going to take your job, but someone that does use AI will take your job. And so it's this idea that we got to see it as a tool. So I'm not afraid that it's going to replace, content creator. And if it does, then there's going to be a skill set on top of that. And so I probably spend 2, maybe 3 hours a day doing new things with AI. And so one of the things as an agency, we're using AI to help us build websites. We're using AIs to help us build apps. One of the things that I've done with a couple clients was that even though I do love digital, there's also a little bit of physical. And so I have a couple books. And so now I'm also helping others create books. And so I got some friends, Shane and Justin, they live up in Canada and they're friends from Canada. And they're one's a basketball coach, one's a hockey coach. And so, but they have a podcast, they've had over 70 guests. And so through AI, I helped them build. So we took those podcasts and stripped all the data, stripped all the transcripts, and then AI helped us to format a book. And so it gave us a rough outline. They went and they did the editing and they made sure it was in their voice. But in that process, through AI, we were able to put a book together in less than 30 days.
yeah.
And it became, up in Canada, it was a number one bestseller inside of Christian leadership.
That's awesome, man. My business partner and I, we did something real similar. We were like, hey, in 30 days, can we publish all of our content? Or like on a podcast, we do a lot of podcasting, and see if we created a book. And the book's right there on the show. It took us a month and a half because of all the sicknesses that went through my house. But man, we recorded it, we edited it with AI. We talk about AI being like our ghostwriter. And man, we were pumped. I was like, oh, look, I'm a published author now, and it's our voice. It's not like we had AI write it for us. It was like it was writing with us. It took all of our content and created it. So that's the power. I love that you guys are doing that with your friends and help them there. I'm curious for you, how did you get them to the number one bestseller in the Christian leadership space?
So this again gets down to attention, and that's what we got to understand. At the end of the day, we need to get attention, and sometimes it's not necessarily just posting something on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so for them, it started as the momentum was literally hand to hand combat. And so when I say hand to hand, it's like, all right, get out your phone. And the idea was that you need to text every single person that you know that you think would find value in this book. And so it started there. And then from there, the social media amplified it. So friends that loved the book shared about it on social media, shared about it on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. And there's a lot of traction there. So social media, by simply talking about it there and then having other people talk about it there, it was able to move pretty quickly.
That's awesome. Rob, we could talk a lot about your business and all the ways you're helping people grow. I do have this is a sidebar of a conversation before we wrap up our call here. But I'm curious, you brought your family into the whole mix, right? And there are some people that they're getting to the stage of like, man, I want to bring my family, but I don't know if I should into the business. How has growing your influencer and your business been like with your family in tow?
No, for me, it's been everything. I grew up, and it's one of those things. Like a lot of people grew up in a broken home, fairly poor growing up, and so, and I know a lot of people had it much worse than I did, but didn't have a really close family growing up. And so for me, when I was getting married, when I decided to marry my wife Rachel, we talked about the number one goal was to have a family. For me, that's one of the things I wanted more than anything. And so, uh, and again, I'm not trying to throw stones at anyone. This has just been my goal, is to be around my family as much as possible. And now as my kids get older, I have a 21-year-old son. He just got married. And so he thankfully lives like 20 minutes away, but obviously not under my roof anymore. So we don't even see each other every single day like we used to. And so I look at this thing where we work together as such a blessing. This idea that, I did insurance for like 10 years. Actually, it's 11 years. But I would leave in the morning at 7. I get home at 5:30 when the kids were babies. I'd see them for like an hour a day, sometimes not even that. And so for this last season of life, to be able to create social media with the family and to spend time with the family, it was such a huge blessing. And so that's one of the things where for us, this idea of creating content, it really allowed us a lifestyle that has been a huge blessing, that we are able to, for me, to be able to have the family close together for such a long time is a huge blessing. And so this is the same thing with AI. I would say to people is like, okay, if and there are some people, and I'm not trying to say you're a bad parent if you go work in an office all day, because like I get the reality of that. But as these tools come out, maybe there is, if your goal is to not spend as much time at the office, there's probably ways that AI can help you. There's probably ways that social media can help you scale what you're trying to accomplish much faster and much bigger, and maybe allow you to do those things, the goals that you have in life. So all that to say is, without a doubt, doing this with the family was the primary reason why I wanted to do it.
Rob, that is so impactful for me personally, because one of the reasons why I started my business was because I was like, man, I have 5 kids now, but at the time I think I had 3 or 4, I can't remember. It's a big blur at some point. But just the reality of, I don't want to leave at 7 in the morning, get back at 6, and just be like, I'll only have 2 or 3 hours with my kids before they go to bed. And as a Christian, as a believer, I was like, who's discipling my kids? Who's called to disciple them and be the main one? And I was like, well, I am the father. I'm the leader of this household. And if I'm not around enough to do that, like, it's going to be really hard. Not to say that if you are working that job, there's not ways to do it. I know there is. There's pros and cons, but I was just like, similar mentality. I want to be around as much as possible to train up my children. And that my dad, he worked 3 jobs the whole time. I never saw him, so it was like, oh, dad just came in, grabbed a bite to eat, and he was gone. So I wanted to be there for those. So maybe maybe a final word of encouragement from you for those who feel the struggle right now as they're building their business, and they were like, I left my 9 to 5 to start my business, but now I feel like it's 24/7. What has helped you to kind of rein things in so that you could be more family oriented?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's just being intentional. And I know that could be a buzzword, but I think if we're really honest with ourselves to be intentional, as we start this new business that we're starting, I am traveling a little bit, and I don't travel a ton, but like next week I'll be gone for a few days. And so it's just being intentional, knowing that I'm going to be gone is like leading up to that. And when I get back, how do I structure my time? So I'm not just constantly focused on the business. And then there's just the reality of it as well, is like, all of us, if we're building something that does take time, so give yourself grace, because there's going to be times where you're just not going to be able to do it all. There's going to be times where, I mean, the reality is there's going to be times where you have to be away from the family. And so give yourself grace when that happens. But there are other times where you realize there's a lot of time in the day. So for us, it's like, okay, what does my wife enjoy to do? What do my kids enjoy to do? So when I don't have to work, how can I serve them? Okay, so like today, there's a lot of work going on, but I'm going to carve out from 1 to 3. I'm going to have coffee with my wife, just my wife. The kids are staying home. I don't care what they want to do. They're staying home. And then later it's like, okay, we're going to do this with the kids. And I think if we're honest, all of us waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so it's just being honest with ourselves, like, okay, you can waste time or you can be intentional about it. And so, but the word of encouragement is to give yourself grace, because all of us are trying to figure this out. And like you, as a believer, it's like my ultimate goal is to stand in front of Jesus and hear, "Well done and good and faithful servant," knowing that every single day until that day, I'm going to fall down and mess up. But Jesus gives us grace, so we should give ourselves some too.
Rob, thank you for that encouragement. Like I said before we wrap up, I'm asking every expert the same 5 questions, right? And I want to know what's actually working, what they're even working on for themselves. So, question number 1 for you is, what's something in your business you're experimenting with right now?
Yeah, I think this idea of books, and again, it's funny because I'm all about digital, but there's a little bit of there's always the pendulum swing. So I think we're going to get to a place where even my own self, like I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks, but there is like in my own life, I'm like I need to pick up physical books more often. So
Yeah.
I'm doing that. So I'm trying to write more books. So I have, sorry about that, shameless plug. Growing Your Influence is my first book, and I would say it's good. Then there's 4 billion views, which is only like 60 pages. And it's very just like, it's very tactical. It'll be super helpful. And so it's pretty good. The next book is going to be very, very good as far as from A to Z on how to do social media. But at the same time, I'm currently finishing, which will be out next month, a book for higher education, which I'm co authoring with a guy. But then I'm also releasing a series of 5 books, and they're going to be short, probably like 50 pages each. Social media for contractors, social media for car salesmen, social media for hairstylists, social media for podcasters. And so I'm going to dive deep in these on these niches. And so that's what I'm experimenting right now is how can I create content in physical form?
That's awesome. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of books, but I'm sure you and I will have some plenty of time to chat about that.
Yeah.
Question number 2, which part of your business feels the most influx or maybe that keeps you up at night?
Honestly, just getting enough clients to put food on
Yeah.
the table. And so and I think everyone at the end of the day, that's probably one of the bigger stresses is like, there's so many goals, but at the end of the day, if you don't have enough cash flow, that's oxygen. And then the business ceases to exist.
Yeah. Great. Question number 3, what's a goal you're building toward this year that you're really excited about?
Yeah, one of the things that we're going to also do is I'm launching into coaching and consulting. And so that's something new. We got together, I got a course, it's put together. It should be out within the next 60 days. And so that's going to, I think, help a lot of people. And so there's a company I'm working with out of Phoenix. And so they're finalizing, they're packaging all that up together. And so, but that's something new. But this idea of coaching people how to get more attention, I'm pretty excited about that. When it launches, I think it'll be very helpful for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be really good. Question number 4 is, where do you see the industry, and you're in several industries here, but where do you see the industry shifting and how are you preparing for it?
Yeah, I think with all the digital and AI is speeding everything up. And so actually I had a car dealership yesterday talking to a guy and he's like, I was in the music business but now I'm not because AI is no one's going to be musicians anymore because I could just hit on my phone. There's a song and some of you may know about that AI country song
Yeah.
that hit top of the charts. And I see it differently. I said, yeah, that's going to happen but people are going to desire physical. So this gets back to the first question is like, I think people are going to get back to physical books. And so, yes, I can open up my iTunes account and listen to any song I want. And I don't know if that person's real or not, but people are going to start craving to go and see real life artists. They're going to want a real life experience. And maybe it's not a stadium. So if you're a music artist, maybe it's not a stadium, maybe it's a house. Like my daughter's doing music. She does music. So she's having a house concert here. So at some point, we're going to have like 50 people in our house for a concert. And I think that kind of stuff is going to be an opportunity. And so for even content, for example, if you're a content creator, that at some point AI is going to be able to do exactly what you do when it comes to content. But what it can't do is say, okay, on this day in Nashville, Tennessee, at this coffee shop, we're doing a workshop. At this day, at this hour in St. Louis, we're getting together with 50 entrepreneurs. And so it's like these in-person events. So start thinking about what AI can't do. And then because everything will lead to that. And so people want access. So with this podcast, for example, probably next year, AI could replicate your face and your tone and your thinking, but it can't replicate meeting you for coffee. It can't replicate 10 friends getting together. And so I think the real life experience stuff, we're going to start craving that more than ever.
100%. I 100% agree with you. Last question. What's the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Yeah. So I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, is that I want to stand in front of Jesus. And in fact, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like the tattoo that I have on my arm here. It says,
Yeah.
"Well done, good and faithful servant." So my legacy is that, one, my wife, my 4 kids, God willing, all my grandkids, and everybody I come in contact, they're standing there with me and hearing the same thing from Jesus to them.
Amen. Rob, for those who are really excited about what you bring to the table and they're like, man, I could actually use someone like you to help me, to either coach me or just do this stuff for them, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is really good. Rob Clark, LinkedIn. I think it's LinkedIn /Rob Clark.
Yeah.
So I was able to snag that. And then Instagram, I see almost every message on Instagram. That Tall Family on Instagram, I'll see that message as well. But yeah, if you pull up That Tall Family on YouTube or Google or wherever you go, you're going to find us. And I think on YouTube, even I put my cell phone number just at the top of the YouTube page, which is fun. So I get a lot of like 12-year-old kids calling, "Hey, is this really the Tall Family? Send us a photo." And and it's fun, and we send random videos, but yeah, if you just search in Rob Clark LinkedIn, that's probably the best way.
That's awesome, man. Rob, thank you so much for being on the show. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
Ken.
what you're doing and how you're doing it in a very authentic way and bringing the best of who you are to the table.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ken. I so appreciate being here.